Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome back to the Daily Southampton, part of the Global Sports Podcast Network. My name is Greg Elliott, and today joined, as always, by my good friend Zach Ingo-Finch. How you doing, Zach?
Yeah, all right. I broke a tooth yesterday. Somehow still better than the Saints result.
And Oscar, who had the unenviable day of visiting Stamford Bridge yesterday. How you doing, Oscar?
Yeah, I'm. Don't really know how to say in terms of the football. Not great, but everything else all good.
Good. We're going to take a dive into a tactical Thursday, I think, today. We've got a bit of an essay from SLS on Reddit to kick us off, which I'm going to read through, and then I'm going to throw it to Oscar and Zach for some thoughts, and maybe solidifying our opinions yesterday of maybe this really is everything about the end of Juric for us. So yeah, from SLS on Reddit, it's a Roma fan here with some thoughts on Juric. After his dismissal from Roma, as an avid supporter who watches every game live and then the replays, I'd just like to offer some insight into his past performance. I haven't watched the Saints games, but I followed the results, which seem very poor, similar to when he was at the helm of Roma. This dude has no clue and should not be put anywhere near the top league of any nation. He isn't even that cut out for championship teams in England. At Roma, the most questionable thing was him constantly playing our attacking-minded left wing-back as centre-back, as well as not letting Mats Hummels, who should need no introduction, have any minutes. On top of this, his 3-4-2-1 was insanely susceptible to counter-attacks, and game in, game out, we lost points to the same counter-attacking patterns, yet he refused to change and clung on to his ineffective metal high-press instructions. Some coaches are known for attacking play, but even with a leaky defence, the attacking phase was abysmal. It always looked like he wanted pressing wing play, for which we had world-class players like Dybala, but nothing clicked because the midfield would be too empty, leaving players stranded on the wings. And boy does Juric have no idea how to effectively use a striker who seems to be tasked with dropping deep, but then would get swarmed by the opposing defensive midfields or centre-backs and lose the ball. The entire midfield and front three always looked disconnected. We looked lost almost every game against even relegation teams. Make no mistake, I'm absolutely a Juric hater, and while Southampton seems to have a thin bench, there are some quality players which should not translate to your team's current results, so just wanted to share, see if his tactics are still the same. So a lot of that really resonates. Where to start? Oscar, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds pretty much spot on. Do you know actually what was the most depressing thing about it? So I was in the Chelsea end, and all the Chelsea fans around me are saying, "Crap, I didn't actually realise how bad Southampton were." And the thing on top of that is, I actually thought we played quite well for 20 minutes or so until they scored, which, I'm sure you've already touched on, and
Start
the
playing,
softest underbelly of any team I've ever watched, I think, in my lifetime in terms of goals conceded. Southampton team, that is. And yeah, 100% everything that he's just said. And, I touched on it last time with the Chelsea preview. That this man-for-man pressing system, maybe that worked in Italy when everything's a lot more methodical and a bit slower and not as, as reliant on transition as the Premier Leagues are. It is nuts. I don't understand the logic of having Bella Kotchap, who, okay, all right, fair enough. Maybe he's quite quick, but he's 1v1 with Neto every time. And it seems to be that that's the plan, to leave the centre-back 1v1 with a striker attacker who is quicker. And if he's going to, smash him every time that he gets the ball and physically dominate him, and it works, then fair enough. But all that was happening was that Chelsea were getting the ball with their goalkeeper. And, granted, maybe that's why we got a lot of the joy, because their fans were on them from minute one about playing it quickly. But then the keeper would get the ball and play it through 9 of our players and leave Neto 1v1 with Bella Kotchap and Ramsdale and take the whole team out with one pass. I don't understand the logic or the benefit that we get from doing it.
Yeah, it's exactly right, and they were saying on the commentary on Sky about the Chelsea fans getting on and the keeper being struggling and clearly not used to this level of distribution, but they were determined to play it out from him. But you're right, he didn't put ball like straight to a Saints player's foot like we saw what two of our players do immediately. I watched you sent the fan view of the Cucurella goal from our own corner, and it's just horrible, right? Just everyone
Well,
walking,
that's
maybe
not even
slightly getting a jog
tactics.
on.
That just comes down to man management. And yeah, okay, I know the players are slightly devoid of confidence and things like that, but that's not what that is. That is just, are they playing for the manager? Absolutely not in that situation. And you've got Ryan Manning, who was one of Russell Martin's players, one of his legacy players, should we say? He's had the most abysmal shot I've ever seen in my life, trying to turn on it, having just come on, and is then walking back to try and recover when the ball goes down his side. And that for me, Bella Kotchap's walking out of the box, Rebo's slightly more, he's a bit higher up, and but Bella Kotchap's walking. Then he thinks, oh, maybe I'll get a bit of a jog on, jogs back, and then gets to the edge of the box, sees Cucurella there, and just starts walking again. Fernandez, who's been on for the whole game and has been running his arse off the whole game, carries on doing that, runs all the way back and tracks with it. So, and he's probably, of all the players, got justification not to, because he's been comfortably our best player this season. So again, that's not necessarily tactics, but for me, that is the writing on the wall. And as much as I was never for bringing in a David Moyes or a Sean Dyche or one of those. I don't think it would have happened. Something like that would ever have happened under him, and if it
No,
did,
you have to look at. I also was strongly against David Moyes in particular coming in, but you have to look at what he's done to Everton since he's come under them. And it tells you, I guess, everything you need to know. It would be nice to have some tactics to discuss, right? There's not just they stuck to a system that's not working.
but the
Clearly,
one
from that post on Reddit, didn't work
no,
in Italy either.
one of
So
the fundamentals you need for a team at the bottom of the league is that you need to try and stay compact and not ship goals easily. And when you've got, again, I watched it in the second half, and I was speaking to my friend who's a Liverpool fan. You've got Bella Kotchap in the middle with Neto, or whoever replaced Neto, it might be Tyreek George. You've got Harwood Bellis out on the left trying to man mark. He was trying to man mark Tyreek George, so I can't remember who's in the middle at this point. And was it James Bree or whoever was on the other side marking again right out on the wing? One ball just completely takes out. We've seen it so many times, and the Roma fans said exactly the same thing. Just that transition has killed us every time. We saw it with Mateta and Benarek, and that was a slightly better battle. But even then, why do it? I understand doing it if you're a better team and you've got better players. So would it work in the championship? It probably actually would, because we should have better players. But then he stays, it works in the championship, we get promoted, and now we're back to square one because we're going to have an absolute stinker of a season again because our players are not as good as the players we're playing. Except for maybe you get away with it against a team like Ipswich and possibly a Leicester. But again, those are teams that you'd be expecting us to be in and around, or at least having a chance of beating. So, yeah, I just strikes of no planning whatsoever for me.
absolutely okay. Well, we'll carry on ruminating on it and come back to maybe what we think should happen the rest of the season after a message from our partners at Bioniq.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN 2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
Okay, and we're back. Zach, we touched on it a bit last night, but this obviously isn't working. What's the answer for the rest of the season?
what is the answer for the rest of the season? That is the question. When it was just us two way back when, and we were discussing Russell Martin week in, week out, and we were just like, well, they're just not going to get rid of him. It's just going to be like this forever. And they got rid of him, and we had to accept that. And they brought in Juric, and it was supposed to be something different, something exciting. Someone who's willing to have a plan A and a plan B instead of just one plan. And then what we've seen from both this post, from both our analysis, from having Oscar, who's a bit more tactically minded than me, probably not as much as you, Greg, but like, everyone kind of knows my background at this point. It is devastating to see what the future is, because we keep him and we watch another sort of 10, 11 games of just trash, like where we get carved up. We have another 4-0 loss here. We might have a 1-0 loss where it's a slightly better. We get rid of him and bring in somebody else, and we end up just like the season where we went down, where we end up probably internally until we can recruit a manager, and then we pick a completely new, different style of football that no one's ever thought about, and we introduce that, and then we end up in exactly the same position. And I think Oscar hit the nail on the head, where it's like, we think we're too good. It was like there was a Guardian article that came out of the weekend. Somebody wasn't even remotely related to Saints, that basically said that like we almost think we're too good to play like ugly football. Like we've got like the Southampton way, and but what is that anymore? No one talks about it. Hashtag we march on every week. I genuinely don't know what the next steps are. The fact that he admitted that something needed to change after the Brighton game gave me a bit of hope, right? I was like, cool. But then the fact that he immediately backpedaled and said, actually, no, we're still going to play 3 centre-backs despite the fact we don't have them. And then we got battered 4-0. And then yesterday was just like, yeah, it's just kind of bad, isn't it? Maybe I'll get fired. And it's like, none of the players care. They all don't know what instructions they're meant to be taking, or either thinking about the next club they're going to, or alternatively of just, it's like the target at this point should just be not being the worst team in the Premier League. That's it. Just get 4 draws at 0-0. I could not care less. Like, that's it. That's all that matters. And yet, instead, we've gone from having one principled manager who will die by the sword to apparently another principled manager who will die by the sword. So what they really need to do is just strip everything out. Sell them all.
Start again.
Sell them all. Get rid of anyone that wants to go. Let them go out the door in January and completely restart, and hope that we do not end up in a situation like Luton, which is seeming more and more like the day that goes by. And I know this is quite extreme and dramatic for everything that's going on, but like, it's just getting to that point where like, how is it normal? How is it an okay performance when we get battered 4-0? I thought we played okay for the first 25 minutes. It's like that's where we're all at. It's
Oscar, I'm going to ask you a question that I asked Zach yesterday and shared some thoughts on. Is there any point changing manager at this point in the season?
I think if you can see there's a plan and you can see the players are bought into it and are engaged, then I would agree, what's the point? But at this point, he needed to come in and ruffle some feathers. He doesn't really seem to have done that, because the players don't seem particularly arsed. They're just walking around. They don't look like they're worried about anything. Sometimes, I suppose the argument sometimes is that, the devil. But I mean, even I saw a thing comparing Russell Martin's stats to Juric's stats so far. Doesn't make great reading for Juric, I've got to say. So I don't know if either of you have touched on this or seen it, but points per game: Russell Martin 0.31, Juric 0.3. Goals for Russell Martin 0.69, Juric 0.8. So scoring slightly more goals. Goals against 2.25 for Russell Martin, 2.9 for Juric. So we're conceding more goals. Big chances for us: 2.0 for Russell Martin, 1.8 for Juric. Big chances against: 4.3 for Russell Martin, 4.9 for Juric. And expected goals against: 2.3 for Russell Martin, 2.6 for Juric. So,
we've gone downhill.
It would be possible. And I'm not saying I disagree with Russell Martin being sacked. Like, I think the writing was on the wall. Don't get me wrong. Was there a huge amount of point? Probably not. We were going down either way. We don't. I said at the beginning of the season, we don't have goal scorers. We maybe don't have the defensive quality. We're in trouble either way. And I think our fans played a part in it. Don't get me wrong. I think our fans have been superb this season. And last night, you could hear them throughout the whole game, and fair play. And and this might be a bit controversial, but we are. It's a funny fan base, and I'm not going to say the word fickle, but it's
We
similar.
can turn quick. That's what you mean. Like, say it how it is. We can turn quick. We're really bad. You can say what you want about other fans. You can say, as I said, the away support is incredible. I think the away support is significantly better at the moment than the home support. Part of that is due to the fact that, there's lots of factors to that. There is the watching the same thing happen that happened 2 years ago is harrowing.
Yeah.
I think that it's harrowing for the players to hear that. But but the thing is that upsets me about it is even when we're playing away and they go a goal down, they don't have to deal with the whole stadium booing them at that point, and they still just capitulate. And this is the issue that you one of the issues that you've got is that I can understand how it affects the players, but surely on the pitch they need to understand that they're going to do this week in, week out, and they're not going to do anything, not get your money's worth, and on top of that have to pay more for everything. I can understand why the fans are getting mad, and that's part of.
It's more with the managers that I think it started with Ralph, and I'm not going to go back and say we should have kept Ralph. We shouldn't have. I understand the reasons that it was time for him to go. Probably, I think he was a bit burned out, and I think it just it's cyclical. Things need refreshing. Nathan Jones, again, I agree, really didn't help himself, but let's be honest, he was written off before he even started. Fans wanted some, these random blokes that are doing really well in European leagues that no one's really ever heard of, but all of a sudden they see a couple of YouTube compilations and then we want him. Nathan Jones, not a very fashionable name. Again, I'm not saying that I think he should have stayed or anything like that, but out the door before he even really signed. And then, I saw a good amount of our of us wanted Ruud van Nistelrooy, and look how that's panned out. And I understand it's not good enough, and actually, I think at times, in certain areas, we're quite passive as a fan base. And I witnessed firsthand the Chelsea fans protesting last night and protesting about Todd Boehly and Clear Lake being greedy. I was like, well, you can accuse them of several things. They've spent a lot of money. That's one thing I think.
1.3 billion. Just so you know, that's what the number is.
Yeah, I understand frustration, but and I think there are supposedly people talking about doing a protest this week, and more about Sports Republic. Don't know that that's necessarily going to help anything, to be honest. It's.
I think that's the problem, isn't it? Is it feels like we can't make a difference. I think the problem is the only time it ever seemed to make a difference was the Jones out campaign, right? That was just everywhere. That became Saints social media for about 3 weeks. It was and I understand because he didn't help himself by being just incredibly unlikable and throwing all the vitriol mainly at fans, which was just weird, and didn't really win the dressing room. And I feel like similar sort of thing has happened almost again, where you're right. The players don't care. The players haven't bought into the system. Juric is a bit. Everyone's getting mad and upset about it. But who else were we going to get? I think the biggest problem that I have is that they obviously were so locked in on the Russell Martin way and Russell Martin's football that obviously we found out when he got fired that they didn't have a shortlist. They were putting together a shortlist over the space of the week, and what they actually did was phone up the guy they wanted before Nathan Jones and realised, oh, he's available, we'll just get him in. And then obviously the other problem is by that point fans have made up their mind. They'd already, whether it's going to be Danny Roll from Sheffield Wednesday or, as you pointed out, Ruud van Nistelrooy, which hasn't worked out for Leicester. And it's okay, well, but the problem is I think a lot of that gets dropped when we have a good game and, oh my God, we might actually start winning some games and stuff. But then when you say the same thing day in, day out, I can't really blame anyone for being mad. But I have also subsequently made the point that if you turn the atmosphere in your stadium to be the level of toxic that it can be, and it's obviously, I think you're right, sometimes it's toxicity in the wrong places. We'll complain about the fan zones, but they're always packed out. We'll complain about Dell Pub, it's always packed out. So it's we hate that stuff, but we won't come and go well, we're just not going to use it. We'll vote with our feet. We're just not going to use the fan zone. We're not going to give them the money.
I think in
People
fairness to
still-
Sports Republic, they are trying to build the club in the right way. They're just hopeless with the football side.
Yeah, they just
Everything
haven't
else has
haven't
been
done the football
fine.
at
Very
all.
much so. Okay.
Haven't done the football at all.
We'll come back with some closing thoughts after a message from our partners at Zencastr. So here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr. Okay, so yeah, you're right. The football side of it has been the letdown, and I don't think anyone is going to argue with the other improvements around the club and that they are a positive. But where do we go? What's the answer for the rest of the season? If we do, are fans going to be happy if we get rid of Juric and give it to Rusk or Lallana or a combination of the two for the rest of the season? Because it's better than what we've got.
How much is it going to cost to get rid of him is the real question, because that is something we need to consider. This is the only reason that, in my head, what I actually think is I'm in agreement with Oster that, okay, yeah, usually it's better the trash, but in this case, the trash is just it's too rubbish. Like, I can't. It's going to be a painful watch against the next couple of games, right? And it's really bad. And if I had an ideal solution, we would get rid of him, put someone interim in there, and allow the footballing people to come up with a plan over the summer. Whether that means that we don't appoint a manager straight away, wait until the start of pre-season and wait until then. Also, allow the players at that point who want to leave to just leave, and who want to stay to understand that they are going to be playing in a way that the new manager wants to, rather than sort of give them the new manager, then just, at that point you've got the players that want to play for the club. We can have just a bit of a reset. That's an ideal solution. The realistic part of me thinks that we have already done the thing where we've paid a bunch of compensation and fired a manager. We did that last time. It put us in a bit of a financially precarious situation before going down to the Championship. And we look at Salas now like, oh yeah, it was all right, I guess, kind of. But it is just going to be at this point limping to the end of the season. What are we fighting for at the moment? As I pointed out, beating the Derby points record, which I don't even know if we deserve to really, but in that case, it's like defensively shoring us up and getting a few draws, and stop trying to go for like these 5-0 wins we're never going to get. That's what I think we should do. Is that in the ideal solution, it would be get rid of him now and bring in someone interim before an actual plan is put in place. Realistically, keep him until the end of the season, but actually allow the footballing people to put a footballing plan in place that means that we can enjoy the Championship next year. Because if they don't, it doesn't matter if they've invested tons of money into the fan zones. When you get down to League One, no one cares.
Yeah. What about you, Oscar? What are your thoughts?
Well, Rusk's had one game and he's got one of our very few clean sheets. So, you could do a lot worse. He's sitting right there. Don't get me wrong, he's got a bit of credit in the bank as well. Don't get me wrong, never. It might turn out a similar situation for him as well. You don't know, but I just think at least with Martin, you could understand what he was trying to do, what the purpose was, and what the reason was for taking the risks. I just don't get it with Juric. I don't get what he's trying to do. I don't understand. Even if he had better players, he had better players at Roma, and it still didn't work. So I just don't get it. So yeah, for me, I think, I don't know, do you make a change immediately, or is maybe that's why they have tried to bring Rusk and they're potentially looking at that, because it's not just about a case of going down now. It's a case of we're going to go down as a laughing stock if this keeps happening. That's another 4 goals. Another 4 goals. How many games have we lost? 4-0 or 3-0? And, I said yesterday about
unreasonable amount.
What was that? That's now 15 games out of 27 that we've conceded 3 or more goals.
That's so
Horrible. And do you know as well what's bad as shipping the goals is we don't look any the way we're never scoring 3. Our expected goals, if you combine the last 180 minutes of football, they add up to 0.75 of a goal, of an expected goal. So, we're not even going to be scoring 1, let alone 3 or 4 to get back in it. So what?
To be fair,
What
one thing I will say, Paul nearly scored another header yesterday. And did you see his lovely banner? That was good.
No.
No, tell us
You've
more.
not seen this. Some Saints fans have made a banner for Tall Paul. I think it was "In Tall Paul We Trust." Was that which?
That's nice.
It's nice. I think how many goals has he scored? 2 goals in 3 years.
Again, Joe Aribo is still our top goal scorer, our centre back, newly minted centre back Joe
Our
Aribo.
2 centre backs because Bednarek's second top, isn't he?
Yes. So, that's harrowing.
Howard
Me and
Bellis
Greg
is
were
on the list
talking
as
about
well, and he's been out for 4 or 5 games.
talking about how Joe Aribo took place in a like European Cup final, not 3-4 years ago, playing as a striker.
You've got to think about how Matty Fernandez, someone like him, must look at that and think, how has he got a banner? Or Carl Walker-Peters has been here for years and been like superb for years.
Yeah,
And
Because he's a cult hero, and again,
Yeah,
like
I
it's
think so.
the tiny narratives that we need to latch onto. And I know I bang on about that Sheffield United fan from TikTok, like every other episode, but it's true. You have to latch on to the small moments that give you joy, and some of those are like everybody wanting a redemption arc for Tall Paul because we bought him, we spent a lot of money on him, he didn't do anything, he disappeared, he came back. People were mad that our strikers weren't firing. They wanted to give him a chance. They gave him a chance. He played really well against that one game in Liverpool, where I think I've seen that montage now 100 times. And then he's managed to score a couple of goals. They've been really wet and terrible goals, just like he scored in the Belgian league. But it's a nice little bit of a hope story, right, in between what is at the moment. Just feels like it's not even that it's chaotic. It just feels like a slow march towards the death of what we would expect our football club to be. However, I also think that, putting the fact that we're so Southampton focused aside, that is how I think a lot of people feel. As you pointed out yesterday, even Chelsea have got protests going on. And when they say about the fact that they feel like they're taking advantage, it's going to be the prices of stuff just keep going
ticket
up and up and up.
prices.
Ticket prices, kit prices. We mentioned it yesterday, Oscar, but when you weren't here, Greg was talking about taking his mum and maybe his missus to the Dell pub, and then 40 quid for a mixed grill was enough for him to be put off of that immediately. Like, there is, I think, outside of us, it is, I think, a genuine fan thing where there is a feel that people that go and watch work week in, week out are just being replaced, and they don't really want those types of people at football. And especially the bigger clubs, that is far more evident. But like, it sometimes feels like the model they're trying to implement at St Mary's is similar. The whole, we want to redevelop that whole part of Southampton to, which is admittedly St Mary's having a redevelopment is in the area, and all of that area around it being burnt down industrial land. Having like a bunch of like clubs and and restaurants and stuff would be lovely, but again, it's as you keep pointing out, it's almost like the football is a byproduct of the business. And I don't think that we're the only club that suffer that, but we never have the consequences of those actions been so evident in our football club, because they are just randomly getting in managers that they like or they've picked the phone up to and been like, we'll just use that philosophy for the next few years. So, like, hashtag it can only get better. Hashtag we limp on.
Well,
The
look,
only way is up.
we got lots of time to think about the rest of the season and what comes next as we head into this mini break, as we've been knocked out of all of the other competitions. So, lots of time on the training pitch to prepare for what's going to come next as we face Liverpool.
Maybe we'll have 3 centre backs.
Who knows? Maybe. We can but hope. But in the meantime, that's all we've got time for today. We will be back tomorrow with something. Maybe we'll try for something a bit more positive and look back in the past or something. So, as always, Oscar, Zach, thank you very much for joining me. How are you guys feeling at the moment? Give us a comment. Let us know. Is there any hope that next season will at least be better? Are we clinging on to that? Let us know. We're on all the socials. We're on Spotify. Leave us a review. Leave us a comment. And until tomorrow, we'll see you then.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.